Today we're going to talk about a process called completing the square to solve quadratics, which involves factoring, but I promise you it's going to be super duper easy. So easy that you don't even need to set up your tables and whatnot. But the key to this is finding something called the magic number, okay? The number that would make this super duper easy to factor, okay? So the trick to finding that magic number is taking that middle term, the one in front of x, that coefficient, taking that and cutting it in half. So half the middle number, cut it in half, and then square it. Okay, so let me show you some quick examples, and then you'll try a couple on your own. So if I want to find this magic number here, I cut this in half, so that's 4 squared is 16. So that's the magic number for the first one. Half this guy, so that's going to be 7 squared is 49. Okay, this is negative 6. Even if it's negative, I cut it in half, that's negative 3. But if I square it, it's always going to be a positive 9. So the magic number is always a positive number. Half of this, negative 11 squared, is positive 121. Even if it's an odd number, that's okay. Now, if I ask you for half of this, a lot of you would say 3.5. I would leave it as a fraction. So instead of calling it 3.5, I would call it 7 over 2. So this is half of it. And the reason why I would want to leave it as a fraction is if you could square a number, you could square a fraction. Now this is half. I didn't square yet. If I squared it, then all I have to do is square the top, square the bottom, and there we go. Here's the magic number, okay? Same thing here. If I cut it in half, cutting in half is just putting a 2 in the denominator. Now if I square that, negative 3 squared is positive 9, 2 squared is 4, and those are my magic numbers, okay? All right. At this point, why don't you guys take a look at these problems here, okay, and see if you can find those magic numbers. All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at this first one here. So if I cut that in half, that's 9 squared is 81. Cut that in half, that's negative 5 squared is 25. Cut that in half, that's 8 squared, which is 64. Cut that in half, that's negative 10. Negative 10 squared is still a positive 100. Cut this in half. Once again, if I cut it in half, that just means it's a 2 in the denominator. Now if I square it, that's 25 over 4. Cut that in half. So if I cut it in half, don't call it 4.5, just leave it as a fraction, a little bit easier. Squared is 81 over 4. That's it. If you can find the magic number, then you are more than halfway done with completing the square.